Hi, my name is Connor Sherwood, and this is my final assignment for the senior project. For my senior project, I was able to be the on-call pilot for Visionary Homes, which is a large personal home builder here in Cache Valley. But they also branch out to Provo and St. George, southern Utah, with their construction as well. And that's where I came into play as their personal pilot to fly them to and from the different locations, meetings, and other inspections that they had going on. This picture here is when I was able to present to the CEO and my mentor, Jeff Jackson. He's the CEO of Visionary Homes. This took place just a few days ago, where I was able to sit down with him in their presentation room and deliver to him my research project. My senior project had two parts. Part one was flying, which is where I got my majority of the hours. Part two was this research project where I was able to help put together lots of information about aircraft that would be worthy of upgrading their aircraft to. My senior project took place between the months of October 2020 and recently in March of 2021 is where I finished my internship with Visionary Homes. This is the aircraft that I flew for Visionary Homes. It's a Cessna 210 Centurion. Okay, it holds about 6 people, but for comfort, we would downsize it to 4 people. That's what gave them the most comfort and the most flexibility with what they needed to get done. It was housed in this hangar. The hangar belonged to Leading Edge, and Visionary Homes leased it monthly. So it shared another aircraft in the hangar space, but it was a little bit difficult to fit in when you'd pull it out and push it back in. But Leading Edge was gracious enough to help us push the plane back in because it was nearly impossible to do so. So I'd get there early in the morning, pull the plane out, do the pre-flight. I'd usually fuel it up the night before and meet my passengers typically around 6:30 in the morning because Logan's notorious for getting that fog coming in the morning time. And because this plane does not have de-icing abilities, we'd kind of get locked down. So that was why we'd leave so early. Besides from flying it, I would also maintain the aircraft, preventative maintenance, vacuum in. I had a hand vacuum. I'd clean inside and out. I'd hand wash the whole plane and wax certain parts of it as well that needed it. But the plane didn't get too dirty. We didn't use it too much. It was mostly once to twice a week I'd get a chance to fly this plane for them. So anyway, that's the hangar operation. That's me cleaning it. It was a wonderful aircraft to fly. Typically, it took about 2 hours, give or take, to get down to St. George and back, which was generally where they took the aircraft to their office down in southern Utah. So going off that note, here are the different airports that I landed at for this company over the 4-month period. Obviously, we'd take off from Logan. St. George was mainly our destination. Sometimes we go to KSGU or Spanish Fork. Spanish Fork right here. They had building projects in Provo, and so they chose to fly to Spanish Fork so there's no be no landing fees. And then they also had offices in St. George as well. Ogden, they had a couple personnel that lived in Ogden that I would pick up to take to the different building locations. But those were typically the airports that we'd fly to out of Logan. Here's our route. Obviously, if we took off from Logan and needed to get to Ogden or Spanish Fork, we would take the Mountain Road Pass. But otherwise, we would fly above or around the Class Bravo airspace and do a straight shoot at about 10,500 feet all the way down to St. George. On the way home, typically we'd fly at 8.5 due to the headwind. So the lower altitudes, less of the headwind, we get home a little bit faster. So those are locations that I would fly this plane to every week, sometimes twice a week. I was given the flight schedules of the CEOs and the other inspectors that I would fly. And so I would need to coordinate with the secretaries of Visionary Home what my thoughts were about the possibility of a flight. Because, like I said, the 210 did not have de-icing capabilities, we couldn't fly into known icing. Anywhere where there was going to be air mets for icing, we would cancel the trip. So I would communicate with my passengers the night before, after I got as much information as possible about the weather from multiple websites, apps, and of course the weather briefer, 1-800-WX-BRIEF. Aviation weather, as well as ForeFlight and AccuWeather, which is an app. These two are apps. They gave me tons of information for my flight planning to make sure that we would be safe going to and from our destination. Because when you fly from the top to the bottom of Utah, you can sometimes cover lots of different weather patterns and weather systems. So I would need to do my absolute best diligence in making sure that my passengers and myself were going to be safe. And I did cancel quite a few times, though it was intimidating since I was, an intern and their backup pilot. I would make the go no go decision because of my experience and because of my desire to keep them safe and be as professional as possible. So that kind of concludes part one of my project, the flying portion, where I got a majority of my hours, around 68 to 70 hours of flying hours, as well as the pre-flight, the hours that I put into to clean the plane, to get it fueled up, to operate it in and out of the hangar, and just get the plane ready for takeoff. I was able to gather around 70 hours that way. And part two of my project was being able to give a research PowerPoint to, like you saw in the first picture on this slideshow, was the CEO of the company. They indicated to me early on that they were looking to upgrade their aircraft because they didn't want to get stuck due to weather anymore, and they wanted to get to places faster and possibly fly to other states as their company continues to grow. So this is the PowerPoint that I delivered to Jeff Jackson, the CEO of Visionary Homes. In this PowerPoint, we talked about what value did he want to add to getting a new aircraft? What was lacking currently from the 210 that he's had for multiple years? What does he wish he could do better? And the last part was, how big of a leap did he want to make? Does he want a Pilatus? Does he want a private jet? Does he want a TBM, twin engine, single engine? All of these things have to do with jumping up in cost. So how big was that leap he wanted to make? I put together a questionnaire for the two CEOs of what was their most important leaps they wanted to make. How much money did you want to spend? How high do you want to be able to climb? How fast do you want the plane to go? Things like that. So I came up with two categories that were the most important to them. First one was capacity or seating, and the second one was speed. A lot of times you sacrifice one for the other, so they kind of had to make a choice here. I gave them options, in-depth options as well. The Piper M600, the TBM, the Pilatus, and the Cessna Caravan. That presentation went really well, and we kind of settled in on the fact that they wanted to get a TBM. It didn't satisfy their capacity needs, but it did satisfy their speed needs, their comfort, their high altitude operations. Comfort was one of the big factors for them because that's one of the most comfortable six-seater airplanes that has those kind of speed capabilities, and it was just within their price range. And I'm happy to report back that because of this presentation, Visionary Homes is close to making a purchase on a TBM 850 out of Connecticut. The research that we did and the communications that we were able to get into really gave them an inside look into what it takes to purchase an aircraft and talk to the sales reps and get as much information as possible about the airplane's history, its capabilities, what maintenance is coming up, because when you get into a turboprop, there are lots of hidden costs that pop up that you don't really know about until you are a TBM owner, which can be scary because they want to know how much this is going to cost them with their recent growth. They have some wiggle room, but they don't want any surprises. So that was my senior project, part one, part two, the flying portion and the research project portion. Combined, I was able to get 107 hours of work for Visionary Homes, of volunteer work for this internship. I learned a ton. I think the owners of Visionary Home learned a ton. We built a great relationship, and this really satisfied my desire to incorporate actual flying into my senior project, because you meet all of these professional pilots, these corporate guys, these airline guys, and their biggest suggestion for us is to just build time, get as much experience as possible. I was really happy to be able to get this opportunity to fly as well as count it as my senior project. And it really was fulfilling for me and for the CEOs. We both learned a lot, gained a ton of value. And to end things off, here's my aviation quote. To most people, the sky is the limit, but to those who love aviation, sky is home. The limits are being broken all the time. And as long as we as pilots can really let ourselves out there, we're going to find amazing opportunities that we never thought we could ever imagine. Flying down in the Caribbean, or flying a corporate jet for somebody, or like me, the possibility of going and getting other private pilot jobs and moving up in training from a piston engine to a turboprop to a private jet to the airlines. You just never know with aviation who's going to pick you as their star player, and your limit is the stars at that point. So anyway, my name is Connor Sherwood. That was my presentation for my senior project for USU faculty. I hope you enjoyed it, and I covered all the basics.